four of us here, and Councilman Boone is out of town, so we're gonna go ahead and start the work session tonight with a discussion of the Fairfield subdivision and flood study. Eric?
All right, Mayor Council, can we bring that up? How do I do this? There we go. Okay, I think it was back in January, we had spoken to the council. We had had a lot of calls about drainage issues and flooding that's gone on in Fairfield. And over the years, when we've had our major storms, Fairfield has always had significant problems. So in years past, the way when this subdivision was done back in the early 90s, maybe mid to late 90s, it was built around, that is actually Cowpen Creek that runs behind those houses on Fairfax Drive. And the subdivision was built along the creek along with some others upstream and down. And at that time, that was not designated as a flood zone on our FEMA maps. In 2019, when our latest maps came out, it is now designated as a flood zone, and truthfully, that's probably it is very accurate. You know, I mean, it's just when they did our latest flood maps, they actually overflew the county with LIDAR, and they were able to get the contours, and we probably have the most accurate flood maps we've ever had. So in talking to the folks there, if you'll notice that draw, and I'm using, on what you're seeing, can you see the mouse cursor that I'm moving? Okay. So this is the creek line. You can see the blue line coming through. That creek comes right behind here, outfalls into Fairfield Lake. What happens as you go, and this is the flood zone area we're talking about here. That hatched line is actually a floodway. That's the center of it is considered riverine because of the current. So that's the new flood maps that have come in. These are before and after shots from the rain that we had at the end of 2021, I believe. It was before January. So this is looking up Booth Road back to the south. The right-hand side is the water that was coming in. Left is during dry conditions. This is the outfall Booth Road coming. It's about halfway down on Booth Road. And this is the creek bed that runs through here. This is during normally dry conditions. And this is what we have during heavy flooding events. And that is, you know, approximately almost 7 feet deep, probably, or more. And you can see what these people have done because of these issues. They've built a retaining wall here to kind of shape and direct that channel. This is the bridge coming in. This is going to be the west side of Booth Road coming under, and then it flows in. This, when I took it in the picture, doesn't really do it justice because this is all overgrown, but it was raging rapids coming in underneath those culverts. This is looking north up Booth Road. This is that ditch line. This is the area back here we just saw on the outfall, and almost every major storm we have to close Booth Road because you cannot cross it. That's going to be probably a couple of feet deep in water. This is that same area during normally dry conditions. Shot of the same, and that's what it looked like the day of the last major storm we had. This is right at the intersection of 44 and Booth, right there in front of the entry to Fairfield Phase 6, Fairfield Place, I believe. And this is under normally dry conditions. This is right there at the corner of the new Dollar General. A lot of that water comes in from the other side under the road and then filters this way. And that's what we had the day of the latest storm. And you can also see, you know, it was extremely dangerous to navigate going across with traffic. We have it shut off here going back towards Booth Road. This is Fairfield Place subdivision. This is looking to the west from within just off of Lakeview Drive. And you can see, you know, normal subdivision area going through. This is what we had the day of that storm. I also know of 2 of those houses that actually flooded. They had water that actually came up into the house. And one of the issues we have is because they were built prior to there being a flood zone designated, there was no required floor elevation at the time. So now that it's a flood zone, all of these property owners are receiving notices from their mortgage companies stating they have to buy flood insurance on a house that was originally built that was not in a flood zone. And like I said, we've had over the course of the last 6, 8 years, we've had multiple houses in here that have had flood losses. Water's actually gotten up into their homes. So this is the creek bed we're talking about coming down that way. This is the way it looks just on a normal day going through. And this is what we had during that specific day. And this will catch the bridge under lake view and then outfall into the lake. This is the outfall looking just past where we just saw. This is what you normally see, and this is the lake in the background. And that is what we had coming through that day. Which part of it is, if you look back, it bottlenecks somewhat here on this side of the outfall, and then once it gets under, then it turns into that. So, one of the things we looked at is there are grants available through FEMA. It's flood mitigation, where they will offer grants to help mitigate flood-prone houses. And a lot of times that's elevating the house on a specific house, getting it up. But they also look at, I know last year during the FMA application period, Baldwin County had a subdivision somewhere in the county that the road coming in got completely underwater and stranded this entire subdivision. So one of the things that they applied for were funds to be able to elevate that roadway and improve the drainage so that you did not have citizens that were basically stuck on an island and not able to get out of their subdivision. So one of the things we could do that, you know, in talking to Richard and talking to some others about this, is the first step, if we were to try to get a grant to help shape, part of the issue here, let me get there, excuse me, I'm sorry, is shaping that. If you look, that's just a very narrow ditch where the water comes through. The thought is if we can get a study done of the water that comes through there, shape this ditch line where it actually carries the water and is able to keep those levels down that we see there. There is a potential that we can remove, if we can get a study done that shows by doing that we're reducing the elevation of the floodwater, we can potentially remove many of these houses from the floodplain, which is exactly what FEMA would love to see happen with mitigation money. The issue is we have to have the study done so we know that works. If that doesn't work, doing that study and coming up with a way to shape that ditch line, if it doesn't remove those houses from the floodplain, we're probably not going to have any luck getting a grant. If we have a study that shows doing this will, I think we would have a really good, we would certainly have a very good case by being able to remove almost a dozen houses from the floodplain, and FEMA would love that if we can do it. The first step is to have the study done. This is something that the city would have to go out and contract and pay for to have that done, but understand that if the numbers do not come back with what we need, it's probably going to pump the brakes on the application. If we see what we need as far as being able to reduce the flood elevations, then we would go through the application process and request funds to do the work. It's usually a 75-25 split. There would be some things that would have to be worked out if we got to that point with Fairfield Place with their HOA, because if you look down this line, there is no dedicated, HOA-owned drainage easement. There's a drainage easement along the back of all these properties, but these property lines basically meet back to back in the center line of the creek. If they were going to do something, what FEMA's probably not going to like is every single individual person being listed. They would probably want to see some platting done where they actually pull their property lines back and create a straight easement that follows this creek bed. So there's going to have to be a good bit of involvement and buy-in by Fairfield Place. Based on the dozens and dozens of conversations I've had with those folks over the last 15 years, I would think they would be willing to look at what needs to be done to do that. You know, as far as how the split goes, that's something we can discuss with them as well. Ultimately, this is a federally designated flood zone. Their houses lie in that flood zone. So, you know, not to be ugly, but ultimately it is their issue to deal with. But we also know that there is an issue there. These houses were built before it was a flood zone. This is something that we have a lot of citizens that have asked for our help on. This is just a potential way to do that if the council chooses to go that way.
And the study is about 25.
It is, yes. John Curry with Hydro Solutions, Richard called him. We had originally gotten an estimate on that study back in January. It was $25,000. Richard talked to him and said, yes, that price is still good. We need to work with him on the timing of it a little bit. But there's periods every year where the FHA grants are, that grant process is even open. It's done annually. And I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking it's in the March, April timeframe. And so even if 2023 doesn't work, if we get the study back and it looks like it could work, we could look at 2024. I mean, this problem's been there for 20 years. It's not something that we can necessarily solve overnight. But this is kind of a step we can take if this is what you choose to do to try to address it.
This also impacts the Collin property and Fairhope.
That is correct, yeah. And actually, well, and I don't know how much it backs up on this side, but like this flood zone runs right through Spring Lake subdivision off of Greeno. That flood zone goes right through their lake on back, and it kind of snakes around behind the D'Estrahan subdivision. There's an area back there, then it catches that unbuilt property, I always call it, where the Oreo cows were on Booth Road, where they had those belted galleways. It's through that property, comes under the bridge on Booth, and then right on the outfall of the creek between the houses on Fairfax and the street behind. So this thing and it actually, if I'm not mistaken, this thing kind of meanders all the way down near the airport.
So Eric, that's Council President.
Yeah, no, go ahead, ask a question.
So that kind of brings the question of if we funded a study, how extensive of a study is that going to be? If we alleviate the concerns of the people in Fairfield Place and that's in the flood zone, what's that going to do to the retention pond at Fairfield Place? What's that going to do to Spring Lake? What's that going to do downstream of there? We opened up Pandora's box, and then all of a sudden we got to fix a 5-mile corridor of water.
Well,
and if you can do the study,
yes,
people will say, "Oh, you know what to do to fix it. Now you have to fix it."
Right. Well, the issue, we're not having structures flooding in Spring Lake. It runs through their lake. We have never had a structure in Spring Lake that's come close to flooding. It is high, and really, I've not spoken to anybody in D'Estrahan. It comes up in their backyard pretty far. It may come close to their house, but I don't know that we've ever had a flood loss in the 15 years I've been here in D'Estrahan. We have had multiple flood losses in
If you're getting
Fairfield.
that water out of Fairfield Place quicker,
Yes, sir.
I mean, if you're dumping more volume of water downstream,
Right.
it seems to me that water might be rising.
It could, but you know, this actually goes through the Scout property that's the city now has right there, the old Scout property. And most all of that is undeveloped south of there. It cuts through farmlands. To my knowledge, it does not cut through any other subdivisions once it leaves the Fairfield Lake, as of now. But also, going forward, if someone proposes a subdivision around this, we're gonna know, we have a flood zone here. When you're designing this, you need to pull these houses back, you need to get these elevations up. We're prepared to handle it from a planning standpoint now, which they were not prepared to do when the subdivision was originally built.
And what is, would the study include those portions of Booth Road that are having all the issues? Because I'm getting more calls from people who live along Booth Road than I am people in Fairfield.
You are, and well, there's actually two things that go with this, and I don't have it up here, but if you go further to the north, you know, you've got Song Grove.
Right.
There's another branch of this flood zone that comes through Song Grove, goes under their bridge, on through their lake and out. Even in the, you know, and I go back to, gosh, when were the really bad April storms? What year was that? 08? 14? We did not have any houses flood in Song Grove. We had houses in Fairfield that flooded. The closest one to flooding was as you're coming into Song Grove, that real pretty white house that's on the acreage right there before you go over the bridge. Yeah, I stood on his back porch and watched it come within about 6 inches of getting in his house. But, you know, his eastern property line is also a creek. So that just kind of goes along with that.
So back to the original
Yes,
question.
sir.
How extensive will the study be? If it only fixes part of the problem, we got to know what
Sure.
unintended consequences we have.
Yeah,
Either
understood.
upstream or downstream.
Sure, sure. really, this would probably be limited. I mean, we can talk to them. My guess is they would have to study flood elevations further upstream, but the actual work, any work that was done, would be limited from where the bridge is at Booth Road on through behind the houses to the outfall at the lake. Part of the issue, and they tried to fix it years ago, is that bridge on Booth Road belongs to the county, or it did at that time, and Richard, I'm gonna ask for that. It was county. So they did some work. It used to just be a couple of pipes through there. They improved it some many years ago, but it's still gonna get volume through, and it still backs up on the west side of that bridge. But it's getting it through the bridge, on out through Fairfield.
And you might be kind of talking about that. Richard, I'm kind of talking to you as well. Can you short circuit as it runs? Looks like it's running north down Booth Road. Can you take it east down Fairhope Avenue to join up with that flow just beyond the Fairfield Lake?
Well, this much I know is what John Curry does is he does a gridded surface model. It's called the Geisha model. And in this case, the watershed, he would start the modeling at the retention pond that we own adjacent to Winn-Dixie and the liquor store, because that's the top of the real watershed, because everything upstream of that is in culvert. So really, you know that there's not much cause and effect. But what he's going to look at is he's going to design what's happening today. Then what he is able to do in that modeling is, let's say that we take the channel that runs behind these houses, that runs from Booth down to their lake, and idealize the shape of that channel, meaning we make it the most efficient conveyance channel it can be in the geography it has. And then he remodels that. And all of a sudden, for that storm event that put water in the houses, maybe all of a sudden it's 6 inches lower and it doesn't put water in the houses. The other thing that will be looked at is there opportunity upstream for localized regional detention that could also give relief to that watershed. And probably the number one thing to look at, and this is kind of a dream of mine, which has a lot of dollars associated, but you'll recall there's a very, very, very nasty ditch that comes down Founders along the park there. All that water actually goes due north and then joins this same flow. Well, if you had an ability to capture that and take it due east and put it out on the Boy Scout property, you bypass all that. And that may be one of those, effects that if you do X and Y, you completely make this problem go away. Or if you do Y only, let's say it's the channel, but it decreases flooding events by a factor of 4. Meaning that you have to hit that really specific event to have flooding, but you remove 98% of the regular events that do cause flooding. Those will be things that it's that cost-benefit analysis, which Jessica's really good with FEMA. That's what he's going to do. He's going to take that model, and he's going to then, once he has a calibrated baseline of what it's doing today in its current configuration, say if you change this is the results. If you add this component, this is the results, and everything else. So it's a powerful tool. I've had experience with him on a Doleve watershed, and this may have been luck, but it may have been good science. Is when we did the elements that he said to do, and then they went and monitored afterwards, the performance of the new system matched the model exactly. Meaning we decreased the flow through an area by 33%, which eliminated the flooding issue that we were having. So he will give us a tool and will at least answer the question, yes. And once we have those options, then we can see what the cost looks like, and then there's that great cost-benefit analysis that we have to do to make it feasible with the FEMA funding.
Yeah, I think my only question would be, I think similar to what Councilman Burrell may have said, I just want to make sure that, I'm all for helping alleviate this issue. I would love to see this get corrected. I just want to make sure if we order this study that we're not somehow accepting responsibility for this situation.
And that would be something that, we would want council to look at. There have been instances that I know of where that has happened, but not in relation to a designated flood zone. Designated flood zone is a risk area, period. I mean, it just is. So if you're trying to correct or help remove structures from a floodplain using mitigation money, that's one thing. If you have just poor drainage somewhere and it's causing flooding and you know about it, yeah, that's been a problem, but, for other municipalities. But that's something we could look at and talk to council and see what they think, you know, the risks would be, and if it's something that the city wants to do.
And I would tell you, as your public works director, if this was an opportunity and there was federal dollars to apply, you know, I think that would have to be from the very get-go is that we're going to participate in solving this problem, but the ownership and responsibility maintenance still will stay with you. When this project is finished, you know, it is your system, just like any other system in Fairfield. You got to maintain it. It's part of your property owners association and everything else. And I don't think we'd ever, you know, this would never be a case is that we're going to use, because we can be an applicant, you can't individually necessarily or as a POA, but I think that would have to be from the forefront of this, is that when these improvements are made, they belong to you to maintain in perpetuity. So.
Well, I think POAs struggle with that. I mean, the developer builds out a subdivision. By the time they've sold all the lots, built all the houses, and you've got 75 or 100 new owners in there, they don't understand the responsibility of the importance of maintaining that detention pond or that drainage. And I think they just kind of look at the city like, hey, come and fix this. And
Yeah, the biggest
It's not
logistic
always our
issue we're gonna
issue.
have with the subdivision, if you look here, this is the outfall under the, and you can see, that's an actual easement that they have. They do not have that on the north side, so all of these folks up and down this area are gonna have to get together, they're gonna have to be willing to pull their property lines back and create an easement just like this running up the middle. Because technically, as it stands now, in order to make the application, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got to make an application or a partial out list, every one of those property owners on an application. And that's just, that would be a nightmare, that wouldn't be worth doing.
Council President.
Yes, sir.
All we're talking about right now.
Is the study, that is
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and I was gonna say,
I'm sorry,
you're
I'm
making the
sorry.
assumption that the
No.
solution, the only solution is back behind those homes too, and that may not be the only solution.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yes, sir, Councilman.
The mitigation part from FEMA,
Yes, sir.
what does those dollars possibly look like? Do we know that? If we were to say the study says hypothetically, you know,
Wait, wait.
It's a 75-25.
I understand that, I'm talking about, and then we wouldn't, yeah, and then would we know, would that match the type of work if it has to be done besides the 75-25? Would that be more? Would it cover everything? See, that's what, I'm just hypothetically thinking here.
Well,
So-
theoretically is that when you get mitigation dollars, you got to be very careful in your ask, because once they say yes, it's hard to go revisit it. So we'd
Yeah.
have to be, you
So
know,
you'll-
very, very targeted in what we ask for to make sure we really ask for too much. Because if if we open a bid to do an improvement and it comes in under that amount, they're still going to pay 75%. But if they come in over that amount, they're only paying 75% of what we asked for.
I don't think we're gonna be moving any houses.
That's what I'm saying.
I did have one of the residents ask me how he would go about making an application to raise his slab-on-grade house. I got that phone call.
Yeah, they're
So,
desperate.
I know, he is,
Yeah, they're
and
desperate, so I don't.
that's
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
But there's just, especially on that Norman Lane on the south side,
It's
those
nasty.
folks, there's
Yeah, it's
multiple
real over
houses
there.
that have flooded,
I've
that have
been
had
over
water
there.
in them.
Well,
I feel for
I
it.
guess back to kind of what I was saying earlier, I'm in favor of doing the study as long
Yes.
as, again, with council, we determine that that's not somehow accepting responsibility or obligating us to making any kind of improvements.
And if you'd like, we can sit down with
Legal.
council and talk about
Council
it.
members, how do y'all feel about that?
I'm okay with the study.
Yeah, and I think we need to look at this as a tributary of Cowpen Creek watershed study,
Okay.
not a Fairfield drainage
Right,
study.
right.
Well, that's what it is.
That is correct, I agree.
It just happens that Fairfield lays within that watershed.
Gotcha. I agree. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Appreciate it. Next item on the work session is committee updates. Councilman Burrell,
I don't have any updates tonight.
Councilman Martin.
You're asking for committee updates?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I went to the tree committee, and one of the conversations, Arbor Day is coming up, and at some point here, and they're asking for the council they already get seedlings, but they want to maybe possibly get a couple or $1,000 money to get native species, and particularly azalea bushes. But also, this same conversation came up in the Fairhope Environmental Advisory Board. I did not attend, but I have the minutes. As far as we really need to start focusing on planting native trees here, and that was a focus on both of those meetings. So just let you guys know for y'all that's going to come across your desk at some point. I think it's like $500 to $1,000 to do these trees, to hand these out so that we can start planting these native trees in the community.
Okay.
Council President, may I ask?
Yes, sir.
Corey, question. Has it been brought up, the concern over
Popcorn?
Popcorn
Yes, sir.
and camphor trees that are going to take over this city if we don't start getting some kind of
Native
public
participation.
participation in ridding ourselves of these?
Yeah, so it came up in a meeting that Councilman Jack Burrell and one of the volunteers, I think they spoke together, and it was brought up about possibly creating some type of assembly or group of volunteers that can go around. And Jamie was there as well. I don't know if Jamie is in the audience. And actually identify these particular species. But what we talked about, we wouldn't want people to give people just the hatchet to walk around town cutting trees. So what they would have to do is they would identify, this is hypothetical, guys, they would identify it, call Jamie, Jamie would have to come out and say, yes, that's camphor, that's popcorn, and then they could cut it down, or Jamie and the horticulturists would help them cut it down. But yes, sir, that was spoken of. I thought it was a great idea, and it's something that we need to take serious, because that popcorn is very invasive and it takes over things. And that falls right in line with how we fell into the conversation about planting native species as opposed to these invaders. So,
Well, we can certainly, I guess, take the lead on the property that we own and try to remove that. I know you guys are
We talked
busy.
about them cutting it from their property, then Jamie, let you
Right, right.
identify it.
I think that'd be-
Curbside, they would cut it, put it curbside, and then we would replace it with a larger tree.
Well, I don't mean,
we don't have to
some of
replace it.
these, like the camphor trees, they grow by the thousands.
Yeah, we don't have to replace
I mean, if you go down our Triangle property on Section Street, on that street, you could count 10,000 of them in a mile.
Yeah,
It's that prevalent right now.
yeah.
And they'll grow to 90 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're supposed to start educating people about what they look like.
Yeah, education, what I was
Yeah.
thinking, start educating people.
Educate.
Getting the seedlings when they come up.
And they'll do a lot of that on Arbor Day. They talked about it. So look on the website and find out when Arbor Day is. And they'll do a lot of those teachings as well and hand out those native plants that we were asking for.
Okay. Excellent. Any other committees?
That's all I have right now.
Councilman Robinson?
Just, we have a historic preservation meeting Wednesday morning, but I don't have anything other than that.
All right, I do not have any updates either at this time. So next item, I think we're going to try to do department head updates and agenda items at the same time. We got a very long agenda with executive session to boot. So anything we can cover now will hopefully move this along. Kim, do you have anything for us? No? Do you have any agenda items tonight? Nothing?
Wow.
Wow. all
What
right.
she does.
Good for you.
Bobby, how about you, sir?
I don't often get to talk golf, so I'll talk golf.
Come on.
We had our first nightlight tournament of the year, or since I've had one in a long time, Bayshore Charities, and everybody had a great time, and that was very nice. Then on Saturday afternoon, we had a Veterans for 422. It was well received. I hope to have that group back again. It was really good. The Fairhope baseball team is having an alumni and friends outing that's coming up this Saturday, the 19th, and a lot of hunting starts that day, but those who can play golf, it'll be the Fairhope Alumni Baseball. So you can contact Coach or contact me if you want to find out more about that. Golf course, Tom's done a great job. It's in beautiful shape, and everybody's raving about it. So come out and see us. Still got the best burger in town.
And the cheapest.
Y'all having barbecue too out here, out there. Somebody cooking
Good
barbecue.
report. Jeff, do you have anything tonight?
I've got two items on the agenda. Number 26, this is a add-on to the project. The city clerk, planning commission, and building department started about 2 years ago to convert all their paper documents to scanned documents. And what this allows to do is this adds a public element to our Laserfish software. Basically, it'll allow us to present all these documents to the public. So, like for example, all the agendas and minutes that the city clerk has scanned in will now be available to look at. Probably from, when was the first date? 1908 on to 2022.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there will be plenty of
say
people that will
1908?
be digging into that.
All right, so my second item is number 27. This is requesting an upgrade on our internet service. Currently, right now, we have a gigabit internet service, and I'm looking to upgrade it to 2 gig. The difference is exactly $517.70 per month. We just kind of outgrown our bandwidth usage and just looking to upgrade.
Was that a budgeted expense?
It's a budgeted item, but it's
Yep.
$6,000 over budget.
Yeah,
$6,000 under budget?
budgeted when I was, I'm sorry?
Obviously, these are Richard Johnson School of Budgeting.
Well, no, I mean, when I asked for some budget numbers from the vendor, this is what they gave me. Then
That's good.
going back and forth, I just said, look, how about 14.5? And they said, done. So I was able to get it down quite a bit from budget number to an actual quote.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions for Jeff?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Jeremy, you got anything tonight?
How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Quick update. We did start the leak survey with Magnolia River. They started that last week. So their crews are here doing the leak survey, the atmospheric corrosion report. We expect them to be here 6 to 8 months because they're walking our entire system, every single house, doing the atmospheric corrosion report on all the above ground piping. So they will be here for a while. They did start in the cast iron area, fruit and nut section. So if you see their crews out, they will be here for a lengthy amount of time. We are getting a lot of great information already back from them. But it will be a long drawn out process, but the information we're getting is already been extremely helpful. We do have one item on the agenda for tonight. It's item number 25. We did have to bring this to you because it is $2,000 over budget. But we have purchased, just to let you know where our budget is right now on the purchase of equipment. We bought 2 Mini X trailers. Those were $2,000 under budget. We bought a Mini X that was $5,000 under budget, and then a air compressor that was $4,000 under budget. So we're $16,000 under budget on this account, but this trailer did come in when we got the price. It came in at $21,000, and I think it's $23,000 was the total. So this one is $2,000 over budget.
Okay.
Hey, you could have just told us you made up for it in other places. You didn't have to brag about how many things.
Well, I just, want to brag a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Good job.
You earned it.
Not all of our items are coming in over budget.
All right. Is that it? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Jason? How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm good, how are y'all?
Good.
We got a couple items on the agenda tonight. Number 12 is us. It's, Mr. Boone was very much involved in this. But
Oh, yeah. I
I
remember
have to remember it being taught.
Where we at?
that. Item number
Item
12,
number 12.
is that,
Azalea
the lift
Ridge,
station deal?
Rain Tree, I think is a better
Yeah.
name, but it's off the Azalea Ridge property. And the new president of the Property Owner Association there, Sharon Frew, has been great to work with, and there was no issues, and they brought it up to our current specs. So the station is, it's just a new station. They think they spent a little over $40,000 on the station to get it to our specs. So it is only serving, I think, 8 residents currently, and there's a possibility that 2 more could be added, but it is what it is. And then the big item tonight is item 22. Mr. Jones and Mr. Stallings is here in the audience to answer questions that I can't answer on the 24-inch water main. This is from Treatment Plant 3 on County Road 33 back to the 3 million gallon water tank at Walmart. And gets us back to the largest line that we have in that area, which is a 14, so that gets the water back to town. And then we have a 16 that goes up County Road 13.
Okay. And where are we relative to budget on that one? Good shape.
But the budget was,
500,000 under budget.
we will be budgeted this at 7.
7.2, I believe.
And that budget changed throughout. I think this would be the second budget year that this has actually been in. And it's changed a couple times because of the price of materials. So I think originally before this last increase, the budget was somewhere in the 5 million, and we changed it in this budget. And we had, and I think you've got it in front of you, what, 5 bidders? And I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, but I think we had 5 bidders on the project, and the low bid was Infield, and they're out of Mississippi.
Okay.
Our 2 lower bids were from out of town, one out of Mississippi and the other was out of Tuscaloosa.
Excited to see about that many bidders.
We advertised throughout the southeast. I think our engineers did a great job. They helped with advertising, and we tried to get the biggest pool of bidders we could. We had several, I think, ultimately we had, what, 12 plan holders?
And Jason, when we talked this morning, you did say that we would start getting materials in, but this is project would probably take a year.
Yes, every bit
Okay.
of a year.
Okay.
Okay.
The lead times are getting better on ductile iron. We've talked to, I know Mr. Stallings talked with American, and I've talked with McWayne, and both have got better lead times today than they did 6 months ago. So, but we're still looking probably, 5 to 6 months on getting materials in. This is 19,000 feet of 24-inch ductile iron pipe.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So it was under $547,000.
Under budget, yes.
Yeah.
sir. Yep.
Wow. What changed? Length,
Sir?
linear feet, what changed? Nothing?
Nothing
The price
other
of
than-
materials is coming
If you,
down.
Came down?
Yeah.
if you look at if you got and I'm sorry, if you've got the bids in front of you, see how the bids were? We had 2, and then you had 3 that would have been over budget. So I think the getting
Getting-
more bidders and
getting
actually
a
getting
competitive
these
bid.
It dropped the price.
from
That's what I'm
kind of
asking.
outside
Yeah,
of
that's
this
a big
area.
deal. Yeah. Mhm.
Having,
That's why it's so
having
important
5
to get
bidders made.
Multiple bidders. is
And
cheaper
both
for
of
city.
the lower bidders, the
Yeah.
lowest and then the next one up, are both very familiar with laying large diameter ductile
Yeah.
iron pipe.
Yeah.
That was another thing that we were concerned about, was getting a bidder that this was unfamiliar, because it's not like laying 6 and 8 inch pipe. I mean, it takes somebody that does this day in and day out, and they do.
Well, Jason, I want to say, thank y'all for putting that out regionally. And, we like local business, but anytime we can save $500,000, that's not anything to sneeze at. And,
Perfect example.
you got some good folks in Mississippi there, I'm sure. Some, somebody I went to school with, maybe, I don't know. But,
Yes, sir.
appreciate y'all reaching out and getting out in the region and and getting us a good price on that.
It's huge.
Yes, sir. We're very very ready to move on this project because this is really going to help with our water, getting the water from Treatment Plant 3. Right now, with the well that we're actually putting in, with the updated plan, I mean, you're talking about 4 million gallons a day out from that plant, getting it back to wherever we need it in the system, whether it be up this way or down on the south end of the system, we'll have the piping in place to be able to do it. So this is long-term. This is something you can look to 50 years from now. Whoever's sitting in your seat 50 years from now, look and say, that council made a great decision at that time, because this is something that you're not going to outlive.
Wait, you pointing at me? Oh, yeah.
Do what?
It'll be him.
I won't be, but
I won't be.
Thank you, sir.
our engineer's here. If you have any
Any
questions,
questions
if
for the
you have any
engineer?
concerns with, early on, we had some concerns with pipe size. The county was great. We're going to be able to open cut Fairhope Avenue and not bore it. So they were great to work with, keep us around to put a 48-inch casing under Fairhope Avenue. That would have been very expensive. So that saved us probably that $500,000 right there.
And how much more capacity? 2 million a day, 2 million gallons a day?
Currently, when this new well, when the new well's in place, yes, sir. And we have room to grow out there. So down in the future, you probably would be able to add 2 more wells, and that would get us the 6 million gallons a day, and that's what we're building the treatment plant for.
And this 24-inch main will accommodate,
Yes, sir.
and that's why we're doing that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
We're good to go home.
See, Paige? You have a busy week, don't you?
A little bit. I have 20 on the agenda tonight. We've got the fireworks professional services contract for Pyro Productions for our New Year's Eve celebration in downtown Fairhope. So I can answer any questions y'all may have on that. And speaking of budget, I know it is a hair over budget, but I will say we did receive a tourism grant from Representative Faust's office this year for.
What is it?
What's over budget?
Is it over?
Well, I don't know, I haven't seen a number.
There's no number
So
in
you
here.
gotta negotiate.
Just a
the fee
There's no
negotiate.
number. It's a negotiation.
I believe it came in at 11,000. I think we had budgeted 10.5.
But we'll have to bring it back next time for that approval.
It's not on there?
I always love it when we're voting to allow negotiation, but we already have the number.
Well, this is a professional services contract, so this is a specialized, they're coming to us with a specialized aerial firework display. It's not on there? Okay. Okay.
We'll come back next time, we have to come back next time with the amount.
Which is good. It's good that it's not in there.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this is just saying to negotiate a fee schedule and establish a not to exceed with the firm. And then it'll come back to us when it's ready.
Okay, I apologize. That should have
No.
had a cost on there.
No.
No, we're saying that it should not have that
I-
cost
well-
on there.
I think everything is correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
correct.
It's two-step.
It's
This is
two-step
correct, okay.
process. And have we used Pyro Productions before?
We
I
have.
thought so.
This is our third or fourth show with them, so. And then on that next agenda, y'all will also see, we are hoping to have our contract with a band for New Year's Eve for that on the next agenda as well. So, if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer that. But this week, obviously, yes, like Councilman Conyers said, is a busy week. We want to invite everybody to come out. First, tomorrow, we have our America Recycles Day down at the Pecan Street Building. We'll have Public Works and their crew, Dale Linder, and our recycling folks down there. If y'all want to come down from 10 to 2, they'll have a free shredding truck. We only do this twice a year, which is great. It's curbside service. You don't even have to get out of your car. They'll take it, throw it in the back of the shredder truck. We also do electronic recycling as well that day. So just remind folks, we always get questions when we do the community shredding event. So
So that's tomorrow from 10
it's
to 2?
tomorrow from 10 to 2. And then, of course, we kick off the holidays this Thursday at tree lighting. And so we will we'll have that at 5:30 on Thursday night. The weather looks good, looks cold, looks like there may be snow.
Really? Get out of here. Oh, I can't see. I see now.
There w-
Forecast for snow.
So,
I saw seeing the slide.
You know? Hey, you gotta come closer when you're
Don't
doing
jinx
that.
me.
Yeah, I see it now.
and then we also have our movie in the street on Saturday, and we're playing, like Mayor said, The Grinch this year. So we'll have that at 6:30 on Saturday, and then of course our Downtown Fairhope Business Association invites everybody to come out, celebrate Christmas open house on Sunday from 1 to 5 on the 20th. So lots of stuff going on.
Okay, indeed, thank you. Really busy. Richard, you haven't gone yet, have you, sir?
Who's got the other 30 items?
Hunter.
Richard and Hunter?
Just a couple updates. Starting tonight, they're going to be hanging 2 of the mast arms as well as the signals at Twin Beach and US 98. And tomorrow night, they'll do the other 2. So hopefully, if you drive there on Wednesday, you'll be driving under new operating signals there. So that has been a slow process. Our improvements for Gayfer Road, the turn lane signals there, we are issuing the notice to proceed on December 5th. That'll be getting underway, as well as we're having our notice to proceed and kickoff with Arts Alley the first week of December. So a couple projects y'all been hearing about for a long time that are coming to fruition. And Council Member Martin, today we met with the foresters that you selected and discussed, they're working their proposal to develop a forestry management plan for the Triangle properties. And probably the first things they talked about is that we encourage that plan has an invasive species, a mitigation plan. We're to get in there and get that out of there, and the camphors. And just so you know, when we did our walkthrough, we discovered a couple of isolated spots of Kogan grass on the old logging roads in there. So we were able to have a firm come in and do a fall treatment while the seed heads were there at a very reasonable price, and they'll come back in spring and do a further treatment. And hopefully by that time, we'll have all that under a mitigation plan, start removing and treating and mitigating those invasives. That is a problem. And, between the privet, the camphors, and the popcorn trees and the Kogan grass, they'll take over an area if it's not addressed. So.
Forgot about privet, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so you remember, y'all approved the application for A-Trip 2. We're putting that in this week. And cross your fingers there for improvements at Volanta and US 98. As far as the agenda goes, believe it or not, I don't have much, but I'm involved with Jessica on 15 and 16. Those are kind of bookkeeping things with our Restore grant for the working waterfront. And you recall that even though those are big dollar numbers, that's 100% covered by the grant, and there is no hard cost to the city there. Number 17 is near and dear to my heart. That is a Restore grant that allows us to do a complete stormwater inventory, which is going to be a GIS inventory, which captures not only inverts, but materials and how our system is all interconnected. It is a little embarrassing as your public works director. When we got to the intersection of Church and Fales, we knew we had a drainage problem because the road was falling in on Fales, but we could not map what the drainage was doing there, and our cameras kept hitting dead ends. There were blind boxes and other things. So literally before we could fix it, we had to dig it up, and it was like an archaeological dig. It was not plumbed any way that we could imagine, and it was pretty awful, but it's now going to be new and fixed. But this is going to allow us to identify these areas and be able to concentrate on figuring out how our system is interconnected and how we can, answer the question, how much corrugated pipe is out there, which is a good question, but we don't have an answer to. So we ask your support there. And then number 18, Jessica has been the lead on it, but ALEA has granted us an opportunity for $49,892 to buy barricades. I believe that's 400 additional units, is that right? Which gets us very close to eliminating the cable systems for parades. And there's no match here. That's just a straight up, you go buy 400 barricades, turn in the invoice, and we reimburse you. So we definitely support that. Probably really the only straight public works is number 23. It's our annual potting soil. And not to belabor the point, as you know, this is not just potting soil. This is the media that we use to propagate all the plants that we grow throughout the year, as well as that beautiful material that goes in the beds on the corners that you see throughout town. So it is a proprietary special blend, and we've been with it for years and had success with it years. So it's just not your regular old potting soil. It is a special material that allows us to propagate the plants and keep them looking like they do. And I've been working with Conrad on item number 28. Just to kind of give you the quick backstory, this is before Conrad's time, but these lights were ordered for the purposes of replacing lights on US 98. Unfortunately, there was a mistake made that these lights are, one, not DOT compliant. They're really the wrong lights, and they won't work on the mast and arms out there. The good news being, even though we haven't owned them that long, is there is a third party out there that wants these lights and are willing to give us a good value for them, and we're asking you, we can't use them, and we're asking for you to authorize surplus and authorize the mayor to do a private party sales on these. And they have offered us 50 cents on the dollar, which we think is a good value since they're absolutely worth nothing to us right now. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Council, any questions on any of those
Well,
items?
last one you said you have a private buyer, but does it not say receiving bids? Sold to private sector. I got you covered. You're covered.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot to read there.
Okay. Conrad got very detailed on exactly what they were.
I can't wait for someone to read that tonight.
Don't be me.
Well, I thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Conrad, speaking of, do you have any items?
No, sir, we're just finishing up on the tree lights this week.
Keep at it. Y'all doing a good job. Corey, you have anything tonight? Or actually, Pat, do you want to go since you're?
I don't have anything on the agenda.
All right. Corey, you're up, sir.
CP.
I don't have much. I just wanted to,
That's right.
to,
Sorry about that.
yeah. Just want to let everybody know on YouTube and job seekers here that we'll be at the Baldwin County Job Fair tomorrow. We've got lots of open positions. We really encourage you to come out. It's going to be at the Daphne Civic Center from 9 to 2.
Okay. Tomorrow, 9 to 2?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir. Let's see. Eric, did you have anything extra?
I just have one agenda item. It is item 21. We have a couple of big projects that have come in, so I would request that I be allowed to send them to the International Code Council for review. We are really backed up on reviews right now, and it would take a while to kind of get through these. One is a very, very large aircraft hangar that's coming in out at the airport. The others are the apartments, the buildings for the Rockwell Apartments that are going to be roughly across the street from the Waters subdivision on 181. So we have 10 buildings there. We have 2 building types, so we're just going to request a review of each of the building types. And I know Councilman Burrell's asked a couple of times, typically, and I don't have the cost of these projects, we have been hitting, the cost of the reviews has been somewhere between 30 and 40% of what we actually collect on the plan review fees. It kind of depends on the numbers, but that's kind of the range we've been in, is 30 to 40% charge for what we actually receive.
Okay.
Okay?
Any questions for Eric? Thank
Are you
sir.
happy with them, Eric?
Yes, sir, I am. One of the things that we are doing, we do have some city requirements. You know, we have a city code supplement, so even though they do the review, we're still looking at them to check and make sure some of our individual things, because we have our own utilities. So we've got some additional requirements, and we review them as well. We don't just send them off and then turn around and issue the permit. But they do a very, very thorough, I think they've got like 20 reviewers on staff, and they go through it, you know, with a fine-tooth comb, and we have been very happy with them. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Miss Jessica, you got your helper. Yeah. It covered a lot.
The only other item that is on here, we did make a request that they be, that it be removed, and wait till
Number
next time,
19.
is 19, that's it.
To pull number 19.
If,
from
yeah, if we
kind
could
of
just pull it,
technical-
for some technical things. I mean, that's the EDA grant. There are 2 grants on that particular property and that project, and we want to make sure that we're checking the proper boxes for that.
All right, perfect.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hunter, I know we got to cover you. Your last up, if you want to come up here, I'm going to go through the last few items that don't include you and then let you jump in. So just to make sure, council, and you can come on up here because I think it'll, oh yeah, gotcha. All right, so Hunter's going to cover what he can cover on items 6 through 11.
I'm good.
13 and 14, I guess those are yours as well, Hunter.
Yes.
And 24 is also yours. And then that gets us to the resolution on the sailboats. So Mayor, would you handle any questions on the sailboats? Who would be handling that with the Fairhope docks? Okay, Marcus. Any questions? Y'all want to cover that real quick?
Are those on dry land now?
They're in slips. They're taking up slips right now. And they're having to de-water them and basically service them. They haven't been doing it for a while, and they're not working anything.
So do we sell them at auction, or what do we do?
It's just offshore right there to the, just to the north.
Guy at Pensacola purchased it from the guy that used to have it at the end of the yard arm down there, and they moved it into the city slips, and then guy from Pensacola bought it and just pulled it out there in the shallow water and it's sank. He's apparently tried to get it a couple of times up. Is the Coast Guard getting involved with that? Or do you know? Is the Coast Guard getting involved with that boat that sank out offshore? Okay.
Probably need to press that issue a little bit with them. And what about the ones that are, these 3 that are owned by the city now and authorized to dispose of them? Oh, so just dispose via landfill, like they're worth absolutely nothing? They just,
They're worth less than it's gonna cost to get rid of them.
do we get to go back to whoever owned them and charge them for that, or is that?
Problem is, you
Probably
don't know
not.
who owns them. There's one guy that was in federal prison, and there's another guy that sold it 6 or 8 times, and
Okay.
It's interesting.
we can't track it. And the Coast Guard won't do anything as far as declaring them abandoned. We've done everything, run every rabbit hole we can with them, and it's just now they're our problem, what we gotta deal with. We've got somebody that's gonna haul them out, put them on side, and then we're gonna crush them, and they're gonna, in exchange for them pulling it out of the water and hauling it out, they're gonna take the lead keels, and then we're gonna crush it and remove it to the landfill.
Okay.
And then we've got 3 slips to start renting in.
Okay. Got it. And so let's see. Next item, number 30, Historic Preservation Committee, Amy Ford Mono being added to committee. Personnel Board, Jeannie Frazier. Kevin's not here, but I'm assuming okay.
Jeannie's gonna be the next chairperson.
All right.
So, yes.
And then we've got some requests for various runs. We got a couple of short ones and a 5K. So have all those to cover tonight. And executive session. And Hunter, I guess you can go ahead and come back to the podium and hit all these items. Maybe you want to go with the smaller ones first, and then.
I think
24 is just a vehicle for the planning.
That is correct. We'll go backward. It is a little over at budget. It's the same vehicle we budgeted as an alternate to the big Ford F-150s. We got the wrong price on those, so that is $1,200 over budget. Going back to 6, that one we didn't really have much conversation last month on. That was a rezoning request for Dynamic Holdings near on Spring Run Road. It was the office
If there's any questions about those.
That's Spring Run.
It's kind of a landlocked lot, but they'll
Yeah.
be connecting to the
Spring
existing
Run.
property on Spring Run. Didn't have anybody have any conversations since that one. And then 7 is the property, it's north of the Publix at Battles Road. It's final hearing or final adoption for that one. It has to happen before we see the annexation of the Publix property to make it contiguous. I didn't have any questions on that one this week. Montrose Preserve PUD, Larry just came in, so there was, I think, a little bit of confusion that had gotten tabled. It was not tabled. The council has to act on it, but you did ask me to look at some alternatives. And I think a viable alternative is to remand that. It's one of the 5 things you can do within our ordinance. You can remand that to either the planning director or the planning commission. And Jack, to kind of, we talked about briefly last meeting, I can't sit down right now and give a full list of here's what to do, and give a succinct list until we figure out what that right-of-way looks like. And that's going to be at least 2 more meetings in front of you on a separate issue. It's acceptance of those right-of-ways, and then whether you may or may not want to vacate those right-of-ways or have agreements on private roads on public right-of-ways. Once they become ours, to have that discussion. So remanding this is not tabling it until next meeting. This actually may take a couple of months to get those resolutions through. I've spoken with the applicant. I think they're on board with that solution. If you are in agreement, it basically sits in stasis. If it's remanded to the planning director, it actually, what I will say, if there's any substantial changes, and Marcus and Lisa can back me up here, I think we will have to re-advertise and have a new public hearing, because right now, really the only PUD amendment is to remove a condition. If we come back and have clarification on things, that will be a little bit different and need to be re-advertised. So we're probably 2 or 3 months before we can get back in front of you with that solution, but that is a viable option. And I would be happy then, knowing where the right-of-ways are, and then that's the first domino to falls, and then sit down with the applicant and say, okay, here's the things we need clarification on. Once we get those, I will feel comfortable with that being in the PUD and remove that preliminary plat requirement for all of the lots. But that's up for council to decide whether you want to pursue that option. Item 9 is the user fees. I think we discussed that one. If there was any other comments, I'm here for it. We do have a site plan approval review for a business on, I think it's 314 Magnolia Avenue. So office, do you want to run through that or just wait till the meeting on that?
I was going to let you hit the highlight on everything and then just ask the council collectively to ask you questions on whatever items they may have.
John, can you skip to item 10 on the agenda from the slideshow? Is that? Oh, I could have done that. Sorry. I didn't know if you had a fast track for that. Okay, next one would be, there we go. I'll show some pictures. So this is behind the Hampton Inn. That was the site in March. Those buildings are now gone. This is the architectural rendering and site plan. They are providing some parking on site. The building is outlined here, so not pushing to the back rear property line, leaving some room for that back of house thing, items like trash removal. This is an open courtyard. I kind of want to, this is what we need to touch on. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this unanimously, but they had 2 conditions. The plans we saw had some questions about building height, and then the Planning Commission, based on one section of our ordinance, made a requirement on a courtyard enclosure, which you'll see. So what I've done here, I think we've got resolution on those 2 items. Show that in the slides, and then there's one that we do have. So I won't belabor everything we can go through. I'll just kind of highlight the things that were debated. I do want to stop here and just note that There is, the one condition we added is a conflict between the landscape plan and the civil plans. So as you see, the civil plan here shows an 8-foot sidewalk as required. The landscape plan showed the existing 5-foot sidewalk. Well, that removes some of the planting area, removes some of the street trees. So we will need to see a revised landscape plan to accommodate that with the construction documents. But I think they do have room to put tree wells in. There's easy options there we can sit down and talk about. This was the 8-foot sidewalk with a 3-foot planting bed, but as you can see, there's no street trees there. I think I spoke with the owner today, and they're okay with working with us to make sure those happen, so no conflict there. The courtyard wall, as I mentioned, they based it on this, no residential building in the CBD unless it's courtyard plaza or other public space is proposed shall be built to, everything else should be built to the property line. So we did look at this at staff level and council, and there's another section, table 4.1, that gives clear directions on open space, and courtyard is actually a defined space. So we feel that what was proposed actually meets the zoning ordinance. I will show here the owner did, to help accommodate some of the planning commission's concerns, kind of open these panels up, gives it a little bit more transparency. And just to show you from the 3D, it is actually open like that courtyard in the table 4.1. So it is open here. It's just as you go in, it kind of, you walk into this area and then you're in the open space. So the building, and I'll kind of, the first phase we saw, the roof deck was at 40 foot. Then you had some HVAC and mechanical equipment that went to 50 feet, and then a parapet wall. That parapet wall was removed, but other plans still showed the roof equipment. This is all at the during the planning commission review. Since then, I've sat down with the owner. They've revised some things and provided a view study. So they did move some mechanical equipment around, relocated it away from the edge of the buildings, and provided this for us. So the bottom right corner, you see 4 locations. This is what I asked for. The Hampton Inn and the parking deck kind of screens it from the other directions, so it wasn't as concerned there. But what does this look like at street view? They provided this for us to show that any of that mechanical equipment is screened from the public view. You know, dumpsters, garbage is handled on site, utilities, drainage has been reviewed and approved. We've got some utilities to work out final layouts, but I think we're good there. This was other than that little bit mentioned on the right of way. This is excuse me, the landscape plans. Like I said, that's the only thing we'll need to see revised, and then but we believe this meets the intentions of the zoning ordinance, comprehensive plans, and be an asset to the central business district. We do recommend approval with the revised landscape plans should be submitted. I believe we already have the building permit application in. We haven't reviewed anything on it until we get a site plan approval. But it's sitting there waiting on us, other than the revised landscape plans.
Council President, I'd like to ask if all the height issues resolved now? Did that get resolved in Planning Commission? And does your recommendation include those revisions?
Yes, well, it didn't get resolved at the Planning Commission. We looked, and there's 2 phases to it. The applicant and the owner has done everything they can to move around and accommodate what our intent of the zoning ordinance is. Throughout this debate, there's still not clear of what a structure is. So mechanical equipment is not a structure under some like architectural guidelines, and even I think in the building code, it clearly differentiates between the structure and mechanical equipment. So I have a solution for that. We need clarification in our zone. That's when it gets into the weeds on arguing things, but I think there's clear guidance on what to do here, and it needs graphics instead of words. The word structure appears 240 times in our zoning ordinance.
I just want to make sure when we vote on this that we know what we're getting and it doesn't leave it. And look, don't get me wrong, I think it looks great. It's going to be a beautiful project for downtown, but we don't want to open up a can of worms, set some precedent we didn't mean to set.
Yes. I think we have room to clarify our ordinances even more for when it comes to mechanical equipment. I'll leave it that and not try to tie in some of what I'm going to propose as amendments directly to this project. But I think we have room for improvement on clarifying HVACs, water tower tanks, things like that. Yeah. But, as your custodian of the zoning ordinance, I'll freely, openly admit that, and already have I've got a copy for you to take home, see what you think about it, because, actually, all of you, this is what we need. It clearly shows where things can be located. So without telling people what materials and paint colors and styles of architecture to use. So, let's see, the other two are, I think we have 13, Overland Subdivision Phase 1. This is, I think, the first one we brought to you where the sidewalks are actually installed. So all we have is a maintenance bond on this one. Working on getting that original copy, but they have 30 days to do that. Otherwise, everything's clear on that one. And then 14, we do have a performance bond and agreement on that one, but everything's to our satisfaction, so no real lingering issues. We have all the agreements and bonds. And I think that's it.
Just about covers it. All
Yeah.
right. Well, you're gonna be busy tonight.
Yep.
Appreciate the overview. Council, do y'all have any questions for Hunter while he's up here? To maybe expedite the process during the council meeting?
We got to figure out what we're doing.
Did a good job explaining it.
Thank you.
Everybody's good. Thank you. And I know, council, I think there was some consideration given to items 32, 33, and 34 being kind of pushed towards the front of the agenda. I don't see the mayor, but I think that's what she was.
Actually, I think it might have been 30, starting with the appointments.
Okay, yeah, starting with, 30 through 34, kind of going ahead and covering those items first thing before we get into all the public hearings. But if y'all wanted to delay the Eastern Shore Junior Auxiliary to the last item, we could do that, just so Lindsay can stay till the very end.
Keep them to the end. See here.
But if your husband's stuck here, you might as well, right?
I would want to punish Ed, but if he's not here, we can move it up.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, at this time, of course, big thing, we'll have a new election for council president and council president pro tem to kick off the meeting. And if y'all are good with that, let's take a 10-minute break and come back and get everything started.